Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today's guest is someone who beautifully bridges science with storytelling. Katie Rizzo is an educator, writer, and author whose work explores the deeply human experience between love, grief, and resilience. Katie has over 15 years of experience as an anatomy and biology teacher, and she has advanced degrees from Yale and the University of Colorado's School of Medicine. Katie brings a rare perspective because her work explores the emotional depth and scientific understanding. So we're going to be talking to Katie about her work. Her work has appeared in literary journals as well as prestigious anthologies. So we're going to be talking to her about everything that she's up to and going to be up to. So Katie, thank you for joining me.
Oh, no, thank you.
Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I am a Gen Xer who was living a pretty harmonious life. I had three boys. They all were out of the house. I was teaching. I had a really amazing career. And our oldest son really kind of got hit with a pretty good addiction. And he was addicted to pills. Uh, it kind of sent shockwaves throughout my whole family. And about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, he overdosed, which he was 25, which it's really hard to get your head around that. I mean, it was pretty heartbreaking. After that happened, I found that my grief really mirrored my how I felt when I was going through pregnancy, and I'm happy to talk about that in more depth. But I started journaling about it, and I wrote a book about it. I've done a bunch of self-help groups, trying to get, figure out how to live with this new world I'm in.
Yeah, your book, The Trimesters of Grief. So,
Yeah.
so talk about that. What inspired that title? Because that's a powerful title, and
Mm.
you know how that represents your journey. And tell us about the book.
Yeah. Well, when we first found out that was gone, I found that I was sick to my stomach. I had no energy. I was sleeping all the time. I couldn't eat, and those were all feelings that I had when I was in my first trimester of pregnancy with all three of my boys, and it kind of felt like um, a painfully sick, cruel joke, right? And after that, I got to a place where I could kind of bear it, and still at the same time, I was. It was like a state where everybody else was going on with their lives, and I was looking out from the outside, and I couldn't believe it was my life. And that really reminded me of the second trimester. And what I'm calling my third trimester is when I kind of got out of the feeling of hiding and being inside. And I really wanted to tell everyone about this big, beautiful life that was lost. I started writing poetry, which I'd never done before. I started posting it on the internet, which is extremely crazy. And it was like I was showing. I wanted everyone to know, if you met me in the grocery store, and said, "How's your day going?" I would say, not good. I had lost my son. I felt like this need to let everyone see my grief. Since then, I read Nick Cave which is he's a writer. I don't know if you know of him. He is a writer and a musician, and he lost two sons. And he talks about how he asked grief to not live inside of his body, but to kind of sit next to him. And so I did that. I decided that was kind of a call to delivery, and I have asked my grief not to kind of press itself against my face so much. And I visualize it sitting next to me. It kind of sounds crazy, but it actually works. It's kind of like a meditation process where you look at something, a really difficult emotion, and instead of trying to press it down or ignore it or really lean too much into it, you just ask it to sit next to you. You can hold its hand. I could picture my grief as a little orange-haired orangutan who sometimes he's wild and needs a lot of attention, and other times he can just kind of be left alone. Um, Yesterday it was on uh, public transportation. I'm in New Orleans, and I was going from the airport to the French Quarter, and I was feeling like I was out of my element, just like, why am I doing this? Why am I traveling? I have this lost son. Like, I felt this huge wave of grief, and that he would never be able to experience New Orleans. And why was I experiencing it, not him? And I just asked that grief to just sit down and hold my hand. And I just tried to breathe through it and picture it as if it was its own entity, which I kind of think it is, because I feel like grief it's not love that that has nowhere to go, but it's something that Nicholas, my son, and I created together. So, so that's why the title of the book is The Trimesters of Grief. And it's part memoir and part prescriptive elements on kind of how I've been trying to get through this. And I feel like I'm not the first mom in the world to lose a kid. And I wish I would be the last. I hope it reaches people, and I hope it touches people who are struggling with addiction and helps them to figure out some way out of that mess. And yeah, so that's a little bit about the title.
Well, how does your strong background in science and medicine affect the way that you process grief?
That's interesting. So I understand that I understand a little bit about the neurobiology of my brain, that I have all this wiring, and it's not just expectations, but it's that my brain is having a hard time understanding death, in so much as, sometimes I'll turn and look at my phone and try to see if he's called or texted, even though it's been so long. And I understand that that's, neurons in my brain, and those pathways have been reinforced over many years. And so it's kind of hard to have them not die out, but just understand what's really going on, and that it isn't that um, it's not like an amputation. You know how people who have lost a limb, they'll have phantom pain. I think it's really easy for people who've lost their person to have phantom pain. I try to understand, logically he isn't here, but what are some ways that I can kind of connect to him rather than kind of wallow in just how sad it is. And some of the ways that I found to connect to him are um, in writing. So I've been writing a lot of poetry and to and with him, exercising, because I know that exercise helps with mood boosting neurotransmitters. I know that humans are wired for connection, and I don't think I believed that until this happened. And I've started trying to see my son and other people and see opportunities um, as ways for me to kind of see him in glimmers of people. Today, I was at a jazz fest, and there was this brilliant clarinetist, and as she just played with so much heart and wisdom. Her name's Doreen's Jazz, and I'm telling you, I felt like Nicholas had given me her as a gift. So that's a little bit about my science background. And also in my poetry, a lot of times I will try to look at the natural world and how the natural world deals with cycles of life and death and kind of apply them to my life, because I know I'm not special. I am just as human as everyone else is, and that lots of humans lose people and lots of other animals lose their families. And I guess I've been looking to other systems to try to figure out what's the best way to live with this.
Let's take a quick break.
In Kansas, blind vending operators are vanishing without a trace. No bodies, no witnesses, only silence. Detective Michael Miguel thought he had seen everything, but this case pulls him into something far darker, a web of institutional corruption so deep it was never meant to be uncovered. When vulnerable blind people disappear and bureaucracies close ranks, one question remains: who will fight for justice? As Miguel digs deeper, he uncovers a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of power, a system that exploits the very people it was designed to protect. The truth is buried in paperwork, hidden behind closed doors, guarded by those who have everything to lose. Some conspiracies hide in plain sight. This one hides in the dark. Iron Cane Media presents The Blind Conspiracy, written by Mikhail Battles Sr., available now on Amazon.
Well, was there a specific moment or turning point that led you to write this memoir?
That's such a cute question. I love that. So, yeah, I was at a grief group, and there was a woman. I mean, grief groups are very depressing, obviously. And it was a grief group for parents who've lost a child. It could have been to anything. And so we were all sitting around, and everybody there just looked so etched in pain. And there were some people in there who had been there for 14 years. So it's a long time. And not that I don't want to still have this longing and love for him, but to be in that depth of pain, I just did not want that. And I do not want that. And we were sitting there, and this woman who seemed really normal, she started slurring her words, and then pretty soon she kind of slumped in her chair and she fell over. And I recognized that behavior because of my own son. He was addicted to pain pills and downers, and that is how he would act sometimes. He never passed out in front of me, but he did get the kind of droopy eye and slurred speech. And so, in any case, I wrote this wanting to reach out to people who are maybe don't have as much support as I've had, and who are a little lost. Because I don't feel like there's a lot of examples in our world that were of moms who have survived child loss. I mean, there are a few, but we need their voices. That's what I think I want to say is we need, and I think that there's a lot of shame in having a child of an addict, a child who has addiction, or who, yeah, or a child who you lost to suicide. And I think that, not that I want to normalize that, because I don't want that to be, quote, normal, but I I want moms to know that they don't have to just go hide somewhere and kind of drown their sorrows. Have you had significant loss?
Yeah, I lost my grandpa at age 15 to
Oh,
cancer, and that was real hard on me.
yeah. Yeah, you were 15.
Yes,
It's pretty young. I'm sorry about that.
uh, appreciate it. Well, speaking of that, I know that writing about grief can be incredibly vulnerable. So, talk about what was the most difficult part of putting your story on paper.
Well, uh, I guess I there's this group that I'm a part of. It's called LIT, Love in the Trenches. It's out of the Baltimore area. It's for people who've lost their kids to addiction specifically. And I'm in a group where we meet once a month and we write. And I found that you, in that group, you can be one, you, if you come to it with a lot of ego or a lot of pretense, or you're trying to pretend to be something you're not, they can see right through you. I mean, this is a bunch of parents who have lost their kid, and they know what's going on. And being with them, I realize that it's kind of beautiful to be vulnerable, and it's kind of beautiful to shed my self-esteem and all the fake things and just be real. And in being real and saying, I lost my kid to addiction, I have a lot of guilt, I have a lot of regrets, but it's also very freeing instead of hiding that. And it's freeing. I don't know if you know anybody who has addiction, but there's so much shame in it. And I know my son had a tremendous amount of shame, not just from doing the pills or taking the pills, but also for the stealing and the lying and just the chaos that comes with addiction. And so I feel like my whole family has been kind of in this tornado of shame, and I wasn't really sure what was real, but I do know now what is real is my love for him, my love for my other kids, and that other people in this world have a lot of pain as well. And that's that's what I want to be around. I don't I think it's a beautiful place to be vulnerable.
Well, I know you've taught anatomy and biology for years, so did your understanding of the human body change after experiencing such a deep personal loss?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, it has a lot. And I used to be a really scientific person and very logical. And I think I'm a lot less logical and a lot less scientific. The other day, we had a bald eagle up here in our backyard in Arizona. And we don't get bald eagles hardly ever, especially in our backyard. But it sat there for 2 hours or maybe even longer. And my husband and I took some pictures of it and we sat with it. And that defies science, right? That, like, why would a bald eagle want to visit with us for so long? But it did. So that's really challenged me. And for sure, there is a researcher, Mr. Ramirez at BU in Boston University. And he looks at memory and he can give mice a memory, an actual memory, by using an implanted electrode. And he can take away a memory. And that's got me, I don't think I would have been as interested in that if I hadn't have lost Nicholas. It has me really curious about the nature of memory. And as much as I want a new memory with Nicholas, if I can just be open to the fact that there are mice out there who have pretend memories, um, and maybe I can be open to the fact that maybe there is such thing as like woo-woo bald eagles visit you, and it's really your dead son trying to come back and tell you he still loves you. So I guess it really has affected my science brain.
Well, how do you balance honoring your personal story while making it relatable for other people who have gone through their own grief?
Mhm. Gosh, that's such a good question. There's this book, it's called Tattoos on the Heart. Have you read it? Well, the book, it's by a priest who he goes to LA and he works with kids who are in rival gangs.
No, I haven't heard of it.
Okay, it's beautiful. It's really incredible. And I don't know. I feel like the thread of humanity from his, well, I just read it on the yesterday, a lot of it. And the thread of humanity, just how beautiful it is to see somebody and to witness their pain and love somebody. I don't know how many kids he saved, but it was probably a lot. And he also didn't save a lot, and he describes their funerals, which is just horrific. But hopefully, I can see other people and see their humanity. I mean, there are some parents who have lost more than one kid. And I hope that how I meet people in their grief is just in being earnest, because we're all humans trying to have a human experience. And some people have been luckier than others. And I don't think, yeah, I think it's our job to make life easier on other people. And I don't think bad things happen to bad people. I think sometimes bad things just happen.
We'll talk about how your poetry writing differs from
Mm.
your memoir writing.
You're sweet. Well, my poetry writing is, I never studied poetry. I don't have an MFA. Since I started writing poetry, I've started reading about different types of poetry and how to write it, which has been interesting. But I feel like it's almost, I don't know, are you familiar with automatic writing?
No, I've never heard of it.
Okay, automatic writing. I think it's an AAA thing, an Alcoholics Anonymous thing, where but I could be wrong. But I think in AA sometimes they'll ask people to just write without thinking, like write to your higher power, or have your higher power write back to you without thinking. And so, and I think automatic writing has also come into the mainstream about kind of writing to your dead loved one. So I feel like this didn't start off being automatic writing, and but it has a flavor of that to it. A lot of times I wake up almost every morning and I will think about, something I saw in nature that day. Like a few days ago, I saw a wolf or a coyote, not a wolf. It would have been great if it was a wolf, but I saw a coyote. And then just how that applies to Nicholas, to my other boys, or like the life cycle of the coyote and like what lessons I could learn from it. And then I just try to put that into a poem because I feel like my job right now is to be a loving witness of the world. So that's a little bit about my poetry. And yeah.
Well, what misconceptions do you think people have about grief that your book challenges?
Mm. Can you think of a misconception that you came against in grief, or am I putting you on the spot?
Well, I guess if I had to be on the spot, I would say, that just get over it, or
Yeah,
something like that. Suck it up, I guess.
yeah. And did you know right away that that was just not something that you could ever do?
No, I tried.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a misconception I have heard and I feel. Lots of times people will say, like, when are you going to stop writing poetry? Or I don't know. I feel like in our culture, we just want everybody to be their best selves, optimize your best selves, go live your best life. But what if you're living your best life isn't ignoring all that stuff, but actually kind of leaning into it? I guess that's what I think. Um, since Nicholas passed, I've been doing a lot of meditating because they say it's good for you. And I have that Calm app, and I probably spend 20 minutes a day at meditating with that. And something that's really been good for me to realize is that my emotions are not going to swallow me up. I'm not going to go crazy. They're big and scary, but so is my love. Like it's delicious to feel like my love for him, or remember something beautiful that he said, or something that he and his brothers did, because I don't want to forget those.
Well, for someone currently navigating loss, what do you hope they take away from your work?
You're sweet. I hope they take away that there's a lot of shame and there's a lot of guilt, especially in the beginning of grief. And I haven't met a parent who didn't come against a ton of shame and guilt. Even parents who lost their kids to a cancer felt a lot of guilt and shame. And I think that's just normal. So I hope they take that away. And I also hope they find a way to live with it, and that there are support groups out there and there are other parents out there. They're not alone, that there are going to be days that are bitter and terrible, but also there are going to be some days where they can just look at the beauty of the world so differently. I think the lows are lower, but I think the highs are higher. I keep thinking that, like, since my son left, that I'm liminal, meaning liminal is like half on earth and half not. And the reason being, it just doesn't feel real anymore. And I think that for people who've lost somebody that's been that dramatic, that I hope they don't give up. And I hope that they don't try to numb with alcohol or drugs, because I watched what that did to my son. And he got really hooked on opioids and benzodiazepines. And he got to a place where I don't think no matter how hard he tried, I don't think he could get off. And our culture is one where we say, you can do that, you can do this, it's you got to pull yourself out of this, use your willpower. And I don't know that addiction is something that can be cured by willpower. So I hope people read it and understand that this beast of addiction is going to need all your tools and all the people around you. I think from my reading of relapse rates on opioids are really high. 70 to 90% of people who go into rehab for opioids relapse. And that's unforgivably high. I think AA has the best chance at getting people sober, but you have to want it. And I don't know how we get our people to want it, but it isn't by shame and it isn't by society judging. There are a lot of people out there in jail and who are homeless who are addicted. And I hope that anybody who reads my book looks at them with a little bit more compassion. I've seen the statistics on people who are using drugs in jail, and I think it's over 90%. And I think we all know that for the homeless population, a lot of them are on drugs as well. So drugs are just, it's it's a terrible disease, drug addiction, and our society really uses judgment and shame rather than trying to figure out how do we help these human beings get better.
Well, how do you feel like writing this book has changed you, not just as an author, but as a person?
It's it's increased my desire to reach out to people who are hurting. Um, I also, I mean, right now I'm in New Orleans and there are a ton of people drinking and they look like there's a big homeless population. And I don't know how to help people, but this book has really inspired me to want to do something more. Like, I don't in the US there's so many people who have money and have aren't addicted, whether that's because they genetically they don't have the gene, or they haven't had somehow they haven't gotten enough of the pills, so they're doing fine. And then we have this other lower class, like, oh, these are the addicts. And I want to do more. I'm hoping to do more. So yeah. What about you with your podcast? How has it changed you?
Well, I feel like it's given me a different perspective on various topics and taught me things I didn't know. And it's just amazing talking to people like yourself, and like, wow, I can't wait till my listeners hear this story and see what kind of encouragement or how it can motivate or what somebody can learn from somebody else's story.
Yeah, yeah. It's I hope that anybody who's listening who is struggling with addiction, I hope they hear that my son had so much shame and so much guilt because he was so embarrassed by the addiction. And we would say to him, that's not you, that's your addiction, when he stole. And I would give anything to have him back. And if somebody out there is hurting and feeling ashamed or embarrassed, just if you could just listen to me and know there's nothing to be ashamed about. This is just like diabetes, it's just like any other disease. And that addiction has got the death grips on you. And it's okay to get help, and it's okay to tell people, like, hey, I have addiction. It doesn't mean I am a bad person, because you are not a bad person. And we're all human, and we all deserve love and understanding.
Well, tell us about any upcoming projects that you're working on
Mhm.
that listeners need to be aware of.
Okay, well, I have two books coming out. One is called The Trimesters of Grief, and it is available for pre-order anywhere books are sold, and June 9th, and it's being published by Kohler Books and Black Book. Blackstone Audio is producing the audiobook. And then also my book of poetry, None of Them Are You, is coming out November 1st. And those that you can buy anywhere books are sold too. You can find me at www.katierizzo.com or on Instagram at katierizzo007. And I would love to connect with people.
We'll close this out with some final thoughts. Maybe if there was something I forgot to talk about that you would like to touch on, or any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
Sure, I would like to remind everyone, especially mothers out there, that I think we think that if you're doing well in life, your mom or your dad did something great. Like I have a son who's at Columbia, and at freshman day they said, "Parents, you did a great job," and I wanted to scream. I didn't. If I did a great job here, what about with my son who didn't live, right? Like that. Your parents are humans. They do the best they can. And if they didn't love you enough or get what you need, go get it. And I think it's time for us as a society to not put everything on moms, and also to remember that addicts come from families that love them.
Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen. So please be sure to pick up that book and check out the poetry book when it comes out. You can get all the information at katierizzo.com, Rizzo. And please be sure to follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible, especially those who might be going through addiction or families who might be going through addiction. Also, to keep up with all things Living the Dream, visit www.curveball337.com and share the website and the show to everybody you know. Thank you for your support, and thank you for listening to the show. And Katie, thank you for all that you do, and thank you for being so brave to share your story, and thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for letting me do this. This was lovely.
For more information on the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, visit www.curveball337.com. Until next time, keep living the dream.